Welcome, traveler. You found true north, and here's your host, Micah Price.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the True North podcast. I'm your host, Micah Price, and I am so thrilled that you are joining me today on the True North podcast for this brand new episode this week. For those of you that are new, my name is Micah Price. I am 23 years old, and I started the True North podcast as a way to talk about the thing that I love the most, which is Jesus. I want everyone to know Jesus the way I do, and I want people to be able to experience the love and the relationship that I have experienced in knowing the Lord. And a podcast seemed like the perfect place because I can talk to so many of you that I don't see every day. And, basically this is a way for me to say, hey, you should really check this out. So I hope that you do, and I hope that you get something from this podcast, and I hope that you stick around and subscribe. We are now on YouTube, so you can watch these episodes on YouTube. If you're listening right now, you can watch them on YouTube. And I'm really excited about that part because it makes me feel, it makes me feel like I'm more in front of you guys, even though I'm really not face to face with you. I do feel like it's a little more personal, and I really like that aspect of it. And speaking of personal, we're going to get a little personal today with this episode. So the title of this episode is Respecting Rejection. And already the word rejection, even as I'm saying it right now, is like kind of triggering, right? Because nobody likes to be rejected. Nobody wants to be rejected. And honestly, I feel like our goal a lot of times in life is to figure out, how can I stop getting rejected? How can I stop being in situations where I find myself getting rejected again and again for the same thing, for different things, for things I can't help, for things that I believe in? It sucks, right? I mean, just to be honest, it sucks. And I just want to say, one, I'm sorry because I know how it feels to be rejected and it hurts. However, the goal can't be to run from rejection. We have to learn to respect it. And once I learned that, my perspective really changed, and I was able to be much more secure and confident in myself and in my decisions when I realized that it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to get rejected by somebody. And I don't even just mean this in a romantic sense. I mean, people who are supposed to be your friends or you want to be your friends, they will reject you. Even in workplace and in organizations and in church, there is rejection. In family, there is rejection. And, the definition of rejection is to be turned away or left out or left behind or mistreated, really. That's my definition of it. Anyway, don't quote me there. But that's how I interpret rejection. When I feel it, that's how I feel. Is misunderstood, not chosen, made to feel unworthy or less than because of something that I am or do or believe in, something like that. So if you can relate to that, this is a good episode for you, because what we're going to talk about is the story of how I overcame the fear of rejection. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you. I didn't. Yep, spoiler, sorry. I did not overcome the fear of rejection, and I never will, because I think that it's normal to be afraid of being rejected. It is okay that you are worried about being rejected. It is okay that you don't want to be. I do think that there is a toxic mentality that's preached at people about, oh, you need to just go in there and, be like, I don't care if people reject me. That's just not true. We're humans. We want to be accepted and validated. We were created to belong to things, right? That's what we talked about that in our episode a couple weeks ago about community. We were designed to be in community and relationship with each other. So it's okay that you don't want people to reject you. And so I never really did overcome that fear. But what I did overcome is the obedience to rejection. I was living in a way, I feel like at times in my life, when rejection dominated the way I thought of myself. It dominated my decisions. It dominated my actions going into new situations and relationships. I was behaving differently because I didn't want to experience rejection again, or I was putting up with things that I probably shouldn't have for longer because I just didn't want to feel rejected again. So this episode is going to give you some tips about how to stop running from rejection, LOL, there we go, it's already started, and learning to respect it. And so the first step that I could give you I'm going to move my notes here, moving too far, there we go. The first step I have for you about, not running from rejection but respecting it is, don't reject yourself before other people get the chance to. And I think that we do this so often, and we go ahead and count ourselves out before people even have the chance to see what we're about. We go ahead and say, oh, well, they're not going to accept me. They're not going to let me in. They're not going to want to be with me. None of the things. They're not going to give me this position. We reject ourselves before other people get the chance to. And there's a scripture in Matthew that I really like, and it's Matthew 5:37, and I'm going to pull it up here. And it says, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. We'll say that again. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that and why I'm using that in this context. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how are other people going to believe in you? If you don't know what your yes is, how are people going to accept your yes? So for me, Jesus is a yes. I have said yes to Jesus. He is in my life. He leads my life. And my decisions are based on what I think he wants me to do and the way he's called me to live. If I don't know that, and I go into a situation very insecure and not confident in that yes, how are people going to respect that? How are people going to even understand what that means? The chances of being rejected when you don't get rooted in your own belief system are much higher. So when you reject yourself, you're projecting onto other people what it's okay to do to you. You're telling people, it's okay that you reject me. I reject me too. And while we can laugh that off and make jokes, that's not true. You shouldn't reject yourself. It's okay that you are the way that you are, that you like what you like, you think what you think. That's okay. But if you don't believe that, how is anyone else going to? And, you want people to accept you and know you, but you have to know and accept yourself. And that's a process. Sometimes you learn that, though. I learn things that I like and don't like and want and don't want every day. And I have to sometimes go through the process of, I know that people aren't going to like the fact that I do this. I know people aren't going to like the fact that I like this. But I have to be okay with that and be proud of that. You should be proud of yourself. So don't reject yourself before other people have the chance to. It still stings even when you do accept and choose yourself. But you can have comfort and peace in knowing, you know what, that's okay that you don't accept what I like. That's okay that you don't accept my choice or my lifestyle, my decision. That's okay because I do. And then everybody can kind of continue in a more peaceful way. The next step I have is, this one's so big for me, so I'm literally convicting myself here, is don't try to control the narrative. And I was literally just telling somebody this the other day. I love to control the narrative. And in this sense that I like to know what's being said about me. I like to know how people perceive me. I like to know that the image I want people to have of me is the one that they have. I want people to be proud of me. I want people to, like what I do, like what I say. And if they don't, and I'm not there to kind of help people understand what I mean, that's hard for me. So controlling the narrative. The way that we do this when it comes to rejection is I feel like we love to suppress things about ourselves or hide parts of our past or our personality, or maybe we don't overdo certain things or we overdo certain things because we want other people to accept us. We don't want people to turn us away, so we hide things. We play up parts of ourselves we know they're going to like. Have you ever met those people that you call them like a chameleon, right? And they're kind of the people that, depending on who they're in front of, they change. And depending on who they're in front of, even their accent can change, their tone of voice can change, or all of a sudden it's like, I didn't think you liked that. I didn't think you talked like that. But they do when they're in front of certain people. And I think that sometimes we do this a lot in the church, especially because we think that there's a certain image of what people expect of us, what people want from us, and we put that on. Even if we're not there yet, or even if it doesn't fit us, I think that the desire to belong that is innately in a human being is so strong that sometimes we hide parts of ourselves. But if I can give you any advice about this, again, everybody learns this the hard way. Don't change your picture to try to fit in their frame. Just get another frame. Not everybody's going to accept you and say things about you that make you feel good. Not everybody's going to see you the way that you want them to. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with that and just get a new frame. Because think about this. The more modifications and alterations you make to a picture or like a portrait, it doesn't look like the original after a while because you've changed it so much. And especially some things, guys, with a picture, you can't change it once you've cut it. So if you continue to try to force your picture to mold into this frame that you're wanting metaphorically, some of those changes can't be undone. And you shouldn't have to do that to be accepted. That just means these aren't the right people for you. Now, this also means that there's going to be periods where you're going to be lonely. And you're going to have to, again, accept yourself. Sit with yourself. Let the Lord accept you. He does. He made you this way for a reason. So don't try to control the way people see you by changing yourself. Be yourself and let them either fall for you or don't. Let them accept you or don't. But we're not everybody's cup of tea. and that's okay. And we just talked about this at a conference I went to. If you've done the Clifton Strengths, then you're going to know what I'm talking about here. But so one of my Clifton Strengths is I'm a woo, W-O-O is what that's called. And a woo is someone that has very high energy, high charisma, and they're kind of like, a little louder and enthusiastic. And some people get exhausted by having a woo in their life. So sorry to my people that I probably exhaust. But you need them sometimes. So it depends on where you are, I think. But, you're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. I might be a lot for some people, and that's okay. Or some people might need the balance that maybe my personality brings. So think about that with yourself, and that just because somebody rejects something about you doesn't mean you should change it at all. And I think that that's what, especially the women that are listening to this, I think society has taught us that if people don't like the way you look or you speak or you whatever, that you should change it. And that's just simply not true. That's just simply not true. God made you this way for a reason. And Romans 12:2, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this verse, but I absolutely love it, and I'm going to share it with you. And it's, do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. Now, this doesn't say to be transformed so that you can discern what is the good, pleasing will of people, of social media, of the person that you want to like you back. That's not what it says. The perfect, pleasing will of God. What does God want you to do? What does God say about you? Who does God want you to be? And if you have, taken the time to know yourself and know your identity with the Lord, you know this. And so you know that He made you this way without the intention of changing you. He didn't create you so others could change you, because He loved you the way that you are. And Psalm 139 is a beautiful love letter to yourself about praising the Lord for saying, God, you made me this way. You know me. You know my thoughts. You search me. You know me. You know the things I don't want you to know. But you know me and you love me. So don't exchange a lifetime of being known and loved for a day of being validated. It's not worth it. Because here's what happens when we change ourselves for the sake of not being rejected. The first thing that happens is we live a life that's a watered down version. We live a watered down version of our life, never reaching our full potential, never fully acting in what we were called to do or wanted to do, because we kept watering ourselves down to make someone else happy. Or the other thing that happens is you end up heartbroken later because you hid so many things that eventually when the truth came out, the rejection came. Sometimes the rejection is just inevitable. We can delay it sometimes, but is that really what you want to do? Is that really what you want, is for people to know and love a version of you that isn't really there? I can tell you from experience, it feels so much better when someone knows you for who you are and loves you anyway, because people will. Maybe not everybody, or maybe not the one person you might have had your sights on at the time, especially if you're talking romantically, but people will love you. God brings you the right people that you don't need to change for. So don't try to control the narrative and the way that people see you because you don't want to be left out or you don't want to be turned down. I know it hurts, but it's so much more worth it to be known and loved for who you are. And my last step that I have is, we talk about a well a lot in the Bible. I think the metaphor of a well is brought up a lot. And Isaiah 12:3 is the verse I want to read, and it says that you will joyfully draw water from the springs of salvation. So it's talking about that we can continue to go to the Lord and get what we need from Him. We can continually, metaphorically, go draw from His well, and there will be peace, hope, salvation, and love there. But when I think about this with rejection, I think about, how we can't draw from the well of salvation and purpose if we're too busy drawing from the wells of other people's approval. So I challenge you here to really identify your well. Where are you drawing from? Where does your energy, your peace, your validation, approval, where does it come from? What are the wells that you're pulling from? And for a lot of us, it's people's approval on social media. It's your family's approval. It's that guy or girl's approval of how you looked today or how you acted. Those are the wells that we're pulling from. And the difference in these is that some of those run out. Eventually, you can keep trying to do that, but it's not going to fulfill you forever. But one of the options never runs out, and that's the Lord's. So my message with that is that, if you're constantly feeling thirsty for more hope, more joy, more acceptance, you're drawing from the wrong well. fear takes up the space left behind by others when we don't take back control. Guys, giving people control over your happiness and your actions is giving them full control of yourself. You're surrendering yourself to that. Do you want to live a life where you're constantly having the strings pulled like a puppet? Having people make you act and be and look the way that they want you to. That's exhausting, and you're going to stay thirsty for more peace, more comfort. I want you to think about a time that you've done that and think about how you felt inside. Because I know for me, I felt uneasy. I didn't feel certain. And I lost a sense of identity that way. But when I know the well I'm drawing from is the well of God, and I'm finding my peace, I'm finding my comfort, my happiness, my identity in Him, then I don't leave these situations as thirsty. And even when they don't work out, I don't find myself desperate, because I know where my help comes from. I know where my happiness comes from, and it's from somewhere that can't run out and that doesn't want me to change. And that's what's so important here, is that, we have to let Jesus fill the space. Others have left you feeling discarded, unloved, unworthy. And instead of changing yourself so that someone else can come and fill that hole, why don't you let God into it? Surrender that to Him. Tell Him, God, this is where I am continually rejected. And one day I'll share these things, but there have been certain areas in my life where it was constant rejection, and I completely associated this part of myself with rejection. I expected it. I practically invited it half the time, so it didn't hurt as much when it happened. But when I finally took back that control and let God fill those spaces and said, I can't take this anymore, and I know that I'm doing what you've called me to, but I'm going to need you to help me. God fills the space with peace that surpasses all understanding. It's something that I can't really explain. But I know that when I gave that to Him, I was so much happier. And again, my yes was my yes, my no, my boundaries. I knew my boundaries. And so it wasn't as easy to let people cross them as it might have used to have been. Because my yeses were my yeses and my nos were my nos, and I meant them. Because I believed in them and I felt comfortable with what they were and who I was. And that was because of God. I'd like to say that there was some magic recipe that came along that all of a sudden I was just no longer rejected or no longer cared about being rejected, but I don't, and I still do care. It still hurts when people don't choose you or don't like you. But if you trust God to bring you the right people and the right things, the right opportunities, you can escape the things that aren't meant for you, and you don't have to keep trying to force them. You don't have to keep altering your picture to fit in a frame. You just find the right frame. And sometimes you just got to chill and be the picture for a minute. But God will bring you the right things. Because the truth is, again, rejection will always exist. But we have the ability through Jesus to live in spite of it, not in obedience to it. We don't have to continuously just let rejection control our lives. You can learn to respect it. And so the whole summary of this episode and my point with this is that, it can exist. It's going to come. But we can shake its hand when it does, and then we can move on. We don't have to fall apart. We don't have to constantly try to run away from it by changing ourselves. It's going to come, but we can respect it. Have a healthy relationship with rejection. And again, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying rejection doesn't hurt, because it doesn't matter how confident you are or how healthy of a sense of self that you have. Rejection sucks and it hurts. But God is there. God made you this way for a reason. If I can remind you of nothing else, I hope it's that you have a purpose, and there's a reason you were made the way you were. There's a reason you look the way you look. There's a reason He's called you to do what you do and live the way that you live. Don't apologize for that, and don't conform to make someone else more comfortable. Be comfortable with who you are, and I promise you, you can watch as other people begin to become comfortable with it as well. So I hope this was encouraging to you, and I hope that after this, you have a much healthier perspective on rejection, and that you can start to shake hands with rejection instead of running away screaming like I know we all want to do. But as I conclude, I do just want to say I have a little special announcement that will be coming. I don't know when, so I'm teasing you right now. But I have some very exciting things in the works for True North that I cannot wait to share with you. And you can follow me on Instagram at discover.truenorth or True North on Facebook. And you'll get all the updates on there. And yeah, I hope you guys tune in next Monday to the podcast, and I will talk to you soon.